Hi everybody, my name is Tyler Suard and I'm here to talk to you about how you can use artificial intelligence in your advertising business. First, a little bit about me. I am an artificial intelligence consultant, engineer, and instructor. I've contributed to code that is now in use by eBay, PepsiCo, LinkedIn, Salesforce, GoDaddy, Cisco, and BMW. I'm also an inventor. I invented the world's first Wi-Fi enabled IoT wireless bread. Okay, so we're going to divide this talk into three different parts. We're going to talk about words, leveraging generative pre-trained transformers for creating advertising copy. Then we're going to talk about using generative adversarial networks for creating advertising graphics. And then finally, we're going to talk about emotions, using computer vision and facial emotion analysis for gauging customer impact. Okay, so what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is getting a computer to do something that normally requires human thought. For instance, driving a car normally requires human thought. And right now we're working on getting cars to drive themselves using a computer. So because we're replacing human thought with a computer, that is artificial intelligence. So there are many different kinds of artificial intelligence, but right now the most popular and important kind of AI is machine learning. Machine learning is an interesting concept because it's like taking a book and giving it to a very smart child and telling that child to learn on their own, as opposed to teaching the child yourself by writing things on a chalkboard. So machine learning can be divided up into several different categories, such as deep learning, which is based on how the human brain works, and also classical machine learning, which is a little bit different. Classical machine learning is based on simple statistics and algorithms. For example, this picture right here shows something called linear regression. If you've seen the movie Moneyball, this is how the main character guesses which players should be on which team. Another type of classical machine learning algorithm is clustering. It's basically just putting data into different groups. Deep learning is different because it's a more complicated program. It is based on how the human brain learns. It has artificial neurons and artificial synapses. And this is a diagram of what a deep learning program is. So in this talk, when I say artificial intelligence, I am specifically referring to a type of artificial intelligence, a type of machine learning called deep learning. Okay, so first section, we're going to talk about words, leveraging generative pre-trained transformers for creating advertising copy. So a little bit of AI history, we're going to talk about GPT-2. OpenAI is a nonprofit that Elon Musk created to make sure that AI heads in a positive direction. Elon Musk believes that AI could be a danger to humanity. I don't. But I'm really glad that he created this company, OpenAI, because they are at the forefront of all the coolest inventions using AI. So in February of 2019, OpenAI created GPT-2, and they said that it was too dangerous to release because they thought that people would use it to create fake news because it can generate documents instantly, and so they thought that people would flood the internet with fake news. So that didn't happen, but this was a really significant development in AI because it was the first time a computer could create text that looks human. Before GPT-2 came out, most AI-generated text looked really robotic. It didn't feel human, and GPT-2 changed all of that. If you would like to try it out yourself, you can go to www.talktotransformer.com. It's really cool. You enter a prompt, and then it will respond to you in a way that seems completely human. Okay, so let's define what GPT-2 means. Generative means it creates stuff. Pre-trained means it is already trained on the English language. So you just need to train it a little bit on the language that you want to generate. And then transformers are a special type of neural network, a special type of deep learning program. They just came out in the last few years and they are changing everything. Okay, so how this works is you take text in any style, And then you put it into GPT-2, and then GPT-2 creates new original text in that style. It may not even use the same words. It may use different words entirely or different sentences, but it is creating something new in the style of the input that you gave it. Okay, so let's do a hypothetical case study. Let's say I'm an advertiser and I just got this new client called Hello Apron. So right now I have writer's block and I want extra inspiration for writing my copy, and I don't know what kind of advertising copy that industry is already using. So AI to the rescue. Let's use AI to solve this problem. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take GPT-2. I'm going to put in some already existing advertising copy. I'm going to train GPT-2 on that, and then I'm going to have GPT-2 output some new original advertising copy phrases. So what I did was I scraped my competitors' advertising text, everybody in the home meal kit service industry, and then I trained GPT-2 on it. And these are the results that I got. Enjoy new takes on the classics. Get 3 meals free. Cook, eat, enjoy all summer long. $30 off. Get roasty with winter's hottest flavors. Get $30 off. And if you look at these, they're actually pretty convincing. This is much better than I could do on my own. And just to note, none of these were in the training set, as in these are not being used by the companies that I used to train GPT-2. These are brand new creations. Okay, so here are a couple of advantages to using this technique. Number one is instant creativity at the press of a button. Number two is you can draw inspiration from hundreds of thousands of ads and you don't even have to read them. Like, let's say hypothetically, the home meal kit industry has thousands and thousands of ads. So I could go through every single one and study them carefully and get a vibe for what the ads say and then create my own. Or I could just take those hundreds and thousands of ads and put them into GPT-2, and GPT-2 will create new ones in that same style. So the cool thing about this is it does not violate copyrights or trademarks because I just created them, so I can copyright them myself. Okay, so now we're going to talk about images, or using generative adversarial networks for creating advertising graphics. So we're going to talk about some AI history again. So there's a company called NVIDIA, and they create graphics cards. Graphics cards were originally for gaming, but they just so happen to be really, really good with deep learning programs. They speed it up by as much as 60 times. So NVIDIA, in December of 2018, created a program called StyleGAN, and this was so important because it was the first time a computer could create images that looked real. It could create something from nothing and fool people into thinking that it was real. So if you'd like to see an example of how a GAN, or generative adversarial network, works, you can go to This Person Does Not Exist, and every time you visit that page, it will generate an image of a new person's face from scratch. You can also do This Cat Does Not Exist. It does the same for cats. And This X Does Not Exist. It does it for a variety of other things, including websites. Okay, so let's define GAN. Generative, as we talked about before, means it creates stuff, just like with GPT-2. Adversarial and network means you have two different neural networks fighting against each other. They are adversaries and they are competing. So how this works is one neural network is creating images and the other neural network is criticizing them. You have the generator and the discriminator. So what the generator does is it keeps creating images, and then the discriminator keeps saying, I don't think that looks real. That doesn't look good enough. And so the generator keeps learning and the discriminator keeps discriminating until the generator creates an image that is so good, the discriminator gets fooled and the discriminator thinks it's a real image. Okay, so how would you use this in practice? You would take 10,000 images, you would put them through a generative adversarial network, and then on the other side, it would output images of whatever you put in. And these are brand new creations, but in the style of the images that you selected. And you can select 10,000 images of a forest, or of a tree, or of a cat, or a dog, or a person. The reason why it requires a lot of images is because at this point, deep learning programs will require a huge amount of data. So there's no way of getting around a huge number of images, but you don't have to collect them all yourself. Sometimes people will post data sets online for you to download, and these data sets will often have many, many images in them. Okay, so here's an example. We take a ton of human faces, and then we train our generative adversarial network, and then it creates a new face. This face is completely generated. It is not real. This person has never existed. I picked this face because I like it. I think he looks like an everyman. Okay, so let's go back to our case study. I'm working for a company called Hello Apron, and I have analyzed their competitors. I've looked at their competitors' ads, and I find that the competitors' most successful ads in that industry have a person's face, and then they have just like a little tagline. So I decide, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a person's face, and I'm going to have a tagline. The problem is models cost money, photographers cost money, and both take time, and I don't want to do that. So AI to the rescue again. What I did was I generated these faces. These people have never existed. Again, these were generated by a computer. These are not bits and pieces of real people's faces. These are faces that were generated from the bottom up. So now that I've generated these faces, I didn't need any models, I didn't need any photographers, and these people cannot sue me because they never existed. I created these images and I can copyright them. Okay, so let's go back to the text results that I generated earlier on in the process. Enjoy new takes on the classics, get 3 meals free. Cook, eat, enjoy all summer long, $30 off. Get roasty with winter's hottest flavors, get $30 off. Okay, so those are the ones that I chose. Those are the ones that I liked. So now that I have my image, and now that I have my text, all I have to do is put those together in a way that would look good on Instagram or on Facebook. So here's what I did. I just took those exact words that the AI generated, and I took the face that the AI generated, and I put them together using Hello Apron's branding colors. And then I did the same thing with the woman. And either one of these images would look great in somebody's news feed. I want you to pay attention to the fact that both the image and the text were created by artificial intelligence. I didn't make them, I just selected them. And so the interesting thing about this is your role as a content creator moves from the actual creation to selection. You don't have to sit there with a pen and paper racking your brain trying to figure out a good tagline. You don't have to sit there with a photographer trying to figure out what kind of model you need and pay models to come in and license photographs. You don't have to do that anymore. You can generate content with just a click of a button. And now your job becomes selection. You go through the content and you figure out which is the best for your industry. Okay, now finally we're going to talk about emotions, or using computer vision and facial emotion analysis for gauging customer impact. Okay, so first let's talk about what computer vision is. Computer vision is training computers to see. So every image that you see is made up of pixels, thousands and thousands and sometimes millions of pixels. Each pixel has 3 different values for it. It has a red, a green, and a blue value. So let's say you have a brown little square. It might be high in certain numbers and lower in certain numbers. What a computer does is it changes that pixel into just those 3 corresponding numbers. It doesn't do that for just one pixel, it does that for every pixel in the image. And then given thousands of images, the computer can start to understand the relationships between those pixels. Okay, so let's think about poker. This is kind of off the subject, but I'm bringing us back. So let's think about poker. It's been said that you do not play the cards, you play the person across from you. So let's say that a person across from you picks their teeth every time they have bad cards, and they rub their nose every time they have good cards. If you're very observant, you might be able to pick up on those cues and understand what their internal state is at any time. So you'll know when they're bluffing, and you'll know when to fold. So here's an example of what a face looks like when a computer is looking at it through the lens of a program designed for monitoring facial landmarks. So if you look at this image, you'll notice he has dots all over his face. He has dots at the corner of his mouth. He has dots underneath his nose, his eyes, his eyebrows. He even has little green sticks pointing out of his eyes to show where he is looking. All of this is computer vision. It is trying to understand what his face is doing by setting dots on each position. And each dot represents a set of coordinates in the image. So if we take this one step further, we can gauge not just where the facial features are, but what they are doing at any given moment. For instance, we can see in this picture, the guy is closing his eyes, he's kind of smiling a little bit, and he's raising his eyebrows. So the computer can tell with a high probability what facial gestures this guy is making at each time. You'll see that the facial gestures that correspond to what the man is doing have a large green bar next to him. That's because the computer is gauging, hey, I'm 90% sure that he's making this facial gesture. Okay, so why is this important? Because if we can quantify facial expressions and map facial expressions to emotions, then we might be able to more accurately judge a person's response to something that we create. So here's an example of something that you could do. You could say, let's pretend there is a woman who, whenever she is in a buying mood, she will tilt her head and put her hands up to her face. And you know from past experience with her that this is her buying face. You know from several purchases before that when she's about to buy, she will make this particular facial expression. And then let's say there's another guy who you know he's not interested in buying when he makes a certain facial expression. You could show him anything and he would not buy it. So then you know who to allocate more advertising resources to, the woman who is going to buy rather than the man who is not in a buying mood currently. Okay, so let's go and do a little rehash over the concepts that we've covered. We talked about training GPT-2, or generative pre-trained transformers, to create text for ads by putting in a certain type of text that we want. It could be from any industry, and then it will put out text in that style. We also talked about training generative adversarial networks, creating images that we want. It can be any style of image, any kind of image. It could be art, it could be paintings, it could be people, dogs, you name it. Any style of image that you want, it can create and it can make it look realistic. So we talked about using facial analysis to gauge customer impact. I actually have to give you a little bit of a disclaimer. In some cities, states, and even countries, facial recognition is completely illegal. And there are also some phones and apps that will not allow you to access the front camera. So that part may not be as possible or as feasible as the other two. The other ones are ready to go, easy to do. We're going to pretend hypothetically that you can use facial emotion analysis. Then your process becomes creating the text using AI, creating the images using AI, analyzing customer impact, and then repeating the whole process using what you've learned. Okay, so once again, my name is Tyler Suard. I would encourage you to follow me or add me as a connection on LinkedIn. I post new and exciting news about artificial intelligence every day, whether it's some brand new breakthrough or whether it's something that I just learned. I also occasionally post art that I created myself using artificial intelligence. It's something that I'm super passionate about, and I would love to share my excitement with you on a daily basis. If you would like to contact me, I suggest contacting me through LinkedIn, but if you would like to email me directly, my email is tylerseward@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for having me at Adworld 2021.